Once more, the air conditioner died. Sweating, I stood in the hot examination room at Desert Paws Veterinary Clinic. As I meticulously stitched up a mangy tabby cat, it pounded on my forehead. The unfortunate object had been struck by a vehicle and abandoned for dead on the hot asphalt of Phoenix. "Easy there, buddy," I muttered, keeping my hands steady in spite of the stifling warmth. The amber eyes of this cat gazed up at me with that familiar blend of trust and pain. After 12 years of working as a vet should have made me accustomed to it, but each injured animal still made me feel something deep inside. Chest. I heard footsteps running across the tile floor as the clinic door chimed. The voice of Chen came from the front desk, talking urgently to someone. Securing the last stitch, I concentrated on my work. This tabby would succeed. He was forced to. After 20 minutes, I came out of the rear chamber to discover a woman pacing close to the front desk. She was perhaps 5'7" tall, with blue eyes that made you forget what you were about to do and blonde hair pulled back in an untidy ponytail. Her clothes were rumpled, as if she had thrown them on quickly. She hurried over and asked, "Is he going to be okay?" "Excuse me," said the orange tabby cat. Her words, "Someone said you just treated him." There was a faint accent in the voice, possibly from the east. Stress was evident on her face as she clenched her hands together. It dawned on me then. This woman believed she owned the cat. "See," I began. "Miss Lucy Griffin. Lucy, the feline will be all right. But I should mention that he was brought in as a stray. No chip, no collar. He was discovered on 7th Street by animal control." The face turned pale. "However, that's close to my apartment building. He has been fed by me for weeks. He appeared on my balcony about a month ago, extremely thin. I set out water and food. I was trying to get up the nerve to invite him inside." Something changed in my chest when he said it with sincere worry and remorse. The majority would have shrugged and turned to leave. She didn't even own the stray cat that this woman had been taking care of. "You fed him every day?" "Occasionally, if he appeared hungry." "Twice." She swept a lock of hair away from her face. "I would see him because I work from home." God, if I would have brought him in sooner." "Hello." I discovered who I was. I nearly touched her arm before catching myself. "It's likely that you saved his life. Had you not been, he might not have made it through the surgery if they hadn't been feeding him and strengthening him." When our gazes locked, the raucous clinic became silent. Her summer tan made it difficult to see the freckles on her nose. The type of face that was unexpectedly sincere and charming without trying. She questioned, "So, what happens now?" "He must to remain here and observe. 3 or 4 days, most likely. Following that," I shrugged, "if no one takes him, animal control will place him for adoption." "I'd like to take him." The words were released, quick, taking us both by surprise. "Are you certain?" "It's a huge responsibility. Vet bills, food and litter boxes." For the first time since entering, she grinned. "I'm a programmer for software. I believe I can manage a litter box." The way she said it had a certain quality. I liked her right away because she was defensive. To be honest, the majority of people were intimidated when you brought up the expenses of having a pet. It appeared that this woman genuinely cared about the welfare of the animals. "Okay, then," I said, taking out documents. "It appears that you will soon be a cat owner. What is his name?" "Phoenix," she said without hesitation, following the city that united us. After 3 days, I discovered that I was looking at my phone every 20 minutes for updates on Phoenix's recuperation. Lucy had left her phone number. However, I had a feeling that this was more than just the cat anymore. The way she had gazed at me as she bid me farewell, as though she was learning my face by heart. This was the first time I had ever felt this way about another woman. Yes, I had dated a few men, but they always thought I was just acting. Alongside Lucy, I couldn't get rid of the electricity even from our brief conversations. Phoenix was recovering more quickly than anticipated. When I checked his stitches, his appetite had returned and he had begun purring. I told Lucy the good news over the phone. "Really? Is he prepared to return home?" Her voice instantly became more cheerful. "Tomorrow morning." But I was considering twisting the phone cord around my finger. I hesitated. "Perhaps we should get together for coffee first. Some people are concerned. I must review the instructions." A pause. "I'd like that. Then, you are aware of that small position on the Central Desert Roast." "Excellent." 10:00. The following morning, I got there early and asserted a table in the corner. The typical Phoenix crowd of business people were gathered in the coffee shop, grabbing their, before the heat got too much, get a caffeine fix. Laptop-using students and retirees getting out of their air conditioners. Residences. Lucy entered with her long legs flaunted by a simple sundress. She saw me right away and grinned. With that same sincere look that had surprised me at the clinic, she slid into the chair across from me and demanded, "How's our patient?" 508 breakfast, and attempting to scale the walls of the kennel, she chuckled and said, "Classic signs of a full recovery." I felt uneasy about the sound. We said, "He sounds like Phoenix." "Okay, he's got personality." "Coffee." She grabbed her black one. I added cream to mine. I also took out a folder with instructions for taking care of it. However, instead, we began discussing everything else instead of getting into medical specifics. 2 years prior, Lucy had relocated to Phoenix for a job creating applications for a small tech business. "Which apps are they?" I inquired. "Dull material, primarily retail store inventory management. However, I've been engaged in a personal project." Her eyes brightened as she leaned forward. "An app that allows pet owners to ask simple questions of veterinarians. Just things for peace of mind, nothing to replace actual medical care." "That's amazing. How often do people call me at midnight to ask if it's okay for dogs to eat grass?" "That's right. I assume that if people had access to trustworthy information, fewer needless emergency room visits might occur." I gazed at her. Here was this woman who was working to make pet care more affordable for everyone after saving a stray cat. Though it was intoxicating to combine intelligence and compassion. "Lucy Griffin, you're something else." A flush slithered up her neck. "I suppose it's just an attempt to improve the world a bit." The dialogue went so smoothly that we didn't realize how much time had passed. She told me about her upbringing in Boston and how she was always the one bringing home the kids, strays, and wounded birds. I started talking about my experiences in veterinary school and the joy of saving. "The heartache when you couldn't." "Animals. Why Phoenix?" she inquired. "Why, after all, relocate here? A new beginning. To discover who you truly are, you may need to step away from everything you know." She gave a nod as though she fully comprehended. I left Boston for precisely that reason. As thunder roared overhead, we both glanced up in unexpected. The morning had been clear, but Phoenix summers were notorious for their unexpected monsoons. "Oh no, I forgot to bring in." Lucy looked toward the window, where fat raindrops were already splattering against the glass, and said, "Umbrella." "Me neither. Want to wait it out?" However, as is common in the desert, the storm swiftly grew stronger. Rain battered the sky was split by sidewalk and lightning. It became evident after half an hour that this would not be resolved quickly. I grudgingly said, "I have to return to the clinic. Phoenix is most likely curious about where it's a new mother. I'll accompany you on your walk. It's not that far." Together, we went outside, despite the overhang, instantly soaked, holding her purse above her head. Lucy laughed. "So much for being dry." I took hold of. As we ran down the sidewalk, I instinctively grabbed her hand and pulled her close. The rain was cool, but her skin was warm, and I became aware of how close we were when we took cover under a bus stop shelter to catch our breath. Water trickled from her blonde hair, and the way her dress hugged her body. She gave me a look. There is something dark in those blue eyes that I could relate because I experienced it myself. "Mila," she muttered. I ought to have stepped back. I should have joked about the weather, kept the safe distance we had been keeping in mind. I held her face in my hands instead. I said, "Tell me to stop." She didn't. The lips were moist and had a coffee and rain flavor. She pulled me in for a tentative kiss that grew deeper, nearer. Even though there was lightning overhead, there was more electricity between us than nature could generate. When Lucy grinned as we finally parted ways, both of us breathing heavily. "Ever since we first met, I've wanted you to do that." Everything changed with a kiss. Lucy and I exchanged nice texts all week long. We couldn't wait to share our random thoughts, funny pictures of Phoenix getting into trouble, and morning messages. For the first time in years, I found myself grinning at my phone like a teenager. Picking was our first actual date. Phoenix together. Lucy had arranged her apartment with a litter box, a scratching post, and a variety of toys throughout the floor of the living room. Observing her tenderness in healing that orange tabby, something warm unfolded in my chest as a result of wounds. Phoenix said, "He likes you," brushed up against my legs. "Animals have good moral judgment." "What does that say?" "What about me?" She smiled as she asked, "That you're among the good people." The following evening settled into a comfortable rhythm. After work, I would drop by to see how Phoenix was doing, and Lucy would wait for dinner. For someone who claimed to survive on coffee and takeout, she was a surprisingly good cook. However, things became interesting during our late-night discussions. Lucy would cling to her couch with Phoenix in her lap, and we would discuss everything: our dreams, our anxieties, and the relationships that had let us down. She told me about Jake, her ex-boyfriend, and how domineering he had been, constantly making her feel as though she wasn't sufficient. One evening, she confessed, "I thought something was wrong with me, as if I were broken." I reached over to touch her hand and said, "Somehow, nothing's broken about you. On occasion, we simply haven't discovered the right person yet." Her expression when I said that made my heart skip a beat. We were dancing around something that neither one of us was ready to give a name. Lucy proposed that we take a car out to South Mountain on Friday night. I've been hoping to see. Phoenix needs some fresh air, she said, referring to the city lights from above. We placed the recuperating feline in a carrier and drove as the sun was going down. The trail was ideal for Phoenix's first actual hike because it wasn't too difficult journey since his surgery. Because Lucy had brought a blanket and some food, our hike was spontaneous. Picnic. As we laid the blanket out on the smooth rock at the top, Phoenix cautiously explored. It was an amazing view. Below us, Phoenix sprawled out like earthly stars. City lights twinkle. Finally, the desert air was cooling after one more sweltering day. Lucy settled on the blanket next to me and said, "This is perfect." She had changed into, she was wearing shorts and a hiking tank top, and I couldn't help but notice how her hair had golden highlights from the sunset. Neither of us averted our gazes when she saw me staring. I understand. Mila, I sense it. As well, we kissed without hesitation this time. Her hands became entangled in my hair as I drew her nearer, and the cautious boundaries we had been upholding vanished entirely. Her flavor was similar to, we'd shared the strawberries, and heat shot out of her when she made that quiet sound in the back of her throat, right through me. Are you sure? I pressed my lips to hers. Her response was to drag me along with her down onto the blanket, with Phoenix purring happily close by, under the wide Arizona sky. Slowly, we came to know one another. I could feel the warmth and softness of Lucy's skin as she reacted to my touch. Strong and sensitive all at once, she whispered my name like a prayer as she arched beneath me. And I knew I was falling for this woman in a way that both excited and frightened me. We moved in surprisingly harmonious unison, as though this was the moment we had been waiting for our entire lives. After that, we lay intertwined and watched as stars appeared one by one in the sky that was getting deeper. Lucy whispered, "I've never felt like this before." Up against my shoulder, with a female, with whom Phoenix had huddled at the. I reached over to scratch behind his ears on the edge of our blanket. "Do you think he's on board?" He united us. Of course he agrees. We remained up until almost midnight, whispering to each other and kissing each other whenever the conversation paused. There was a new intimacy in the drive back to Lucy's apartment. When she asked me to, I didn't think twice about staying the night. As we stood in her doorway, she questioned, "This isn't just about tonight, is it?" Phoenix swerving between our legs. "No, it's not good because I've already arranging our upcoming date." I chuckled. "Oh, really? What were you thinking of?" I'll surprise you." Sleeping that night with Phoenix purring at our feet and Lucy curled up against my side, I felt more at home than I had since coming to Phoenix. This felt right in every way. Lucy's skin's warmth against mine, her breathing sound, even the way we were both claimed as humans by Phoenix. However, in the rear of my mind, a tiny voice warned in a whisper. Typically, things that felt this wonderful and ideal came with difficulties. I simply had no idea how those complications would manifest. But for the time being, I ignored those ideas away and drew Lucy in. We would work together to overcome any obstacles that might arise. 3 weeks of happiness. That's how, before everything went to hell, Lucy and I had a long time. We had established a cozy routine. I would spend the majority of evenings spent at her apartment. We were both proclaimed to be faithful servants of Phoenix, and Lucy's pet welfare app was gaining popularity among my clinic's beta testers. In fact, I was beginning to think that perhaps, just possibly, I'd discovered something genuine. Then Jake Morris arrived. I was at Lucy's house. She worked on her laptop on Saturday morning while brewing coffee. Naturally, Phoenix was sprawled across her keyboard, making it impossible to program. I was already mentally rearranging my schedule because the domestic scene felt so natural to stay there for the entire weekend. The doorbell rang. Lucy scowled as she removed Phoenix from her computer. I'm not anticipating anybody. Wearing pajama shorts and bare feet, she padded to the door. She gasped, and I heard it. A confident male voice, and well-known, uttering her name as though he owned it. "What the devil are you doing?" "Jake, why are you here?" Something cold was sinking into my stomach as I sat down with my coffee mug. I saw a tall, dark-haired man wearing a fancy suit through the kitchen doorway. He appeared to be the kind of a man who always felt like he belonged wherever he went. "Luce, I missed you. May I enter?" "No, without a doubt, not at all." Her voice, however, trembled a little. I realized I made a mistake. "But I've been reflecting on us and our possessions. I was wrong to let you go." I remained, unsure whether to step in and help Lucy deal with her ex-boyfriend. "I'm frozen in the kitchen." She hadn't spoke extensively about Jake, mentioning only that it had been necessary to leave him because he was domineering. The way she was holding, I could tell there was more to the story from the doorframe. "Jake, we had nothing. You ensured that. Come on, avoid being dramatic. Together, we got along well? Fantastic. Teen, you are aware of it." Now you must go. However, he pushed. He saw me standing in the kitchen doorway after he had already passed her into the apartment. His gaze shifted away from Lucy's pajamas, the disheveled clothing, and the scene's evident intimacy. All right, this is intriguing, he remarked, grinning icily. Should have known you'd find a new way to attract attention, Lucy said. Get out. But her voice was now a little lower. Jake focused on his work and ignored her. On me instead. Lucy is an expert at making men fall in love, so you have no idea what you're getting into with this one. That's enough, I said, taking a step forward, before vanishing when things became serious. But did she tell you? How? About the engagement ring, she replied. Then, without even breaking things off, rushed to Arizona, appropriately. Lucy's face turned white. That was not the case. No, then describe it. Tell your new girlfriend how you wooed me for 2 years, made plans for the future, and then disappeared. Second, I wanted to formally announce it. I searched Lucy's face as she gazed at the ground with her arms wrapped, defensively surrounding herself. The self-assured woman who had passionately made love to me beneath the stars was suddenly not there. Lucy, it's complicated, she muttered. Lucy's favorite word is laughed. Everything is inherently complex, I firmly said. You need to leave. It's her fault. Just complicated. Is finished. All right. However, Lucy, when this one grows weary of your games. 2. You know where to find me. He left his business card on the hotel where we used to stay, and I'll be in Phoenix through Wednesday. Her counter and left as if he owned the place. Lucy sank onto her as the ensuing silence felt oppressive. Couch. Phoenix jumped into her lap right away, seemingly detecting her distress, and I remained in the kitchen, trying to take it all in. What had just transpired? You were engaged, finally, I said, technically, for about 3 days, and you didn't consider bringing that up. Since it wasn't real, she was crying as she looked up at me. He proposed in, what was I supposed to say at Christmas dinner in front of his whole family? No, in front of everyone, I replied. Yes, I then tried to explain that I had only said it because I was trapped for the next 2 weeks. So, instead, I fled. There's a difference. But was there, the woman Did you love him? I was falling for him, but he had run away from commitment before. What made me think I'd be any different? Lucy was silent for a while, petting Phoenix's fur, and I asked a harsher question than I meant to. For a while, I believed I did, but in retrospect, I believe I loved the idea of being normal more than I loved him. She looked up at me, saying nothing about what everyone expected straight. Safe, etc. Mila, I feel safe for you. It's amazing and terrifying and unlike anything I've ever experienced. Jake's words kept repeating in my mind, even though I wanted to believe her. Lucy's specialty is making people fall in love with her, then vanishing when things get serious. I said, I need some air, and grabbed my keys. Please, Mila, I'm not thinking about him. I just need to think. However, as I drove, wandering through the streets of Phoenix on a Saturday morning, I couldn't get rid of the thought that I had been here before and had fallen in love with someone who had 1 foot. Lucy had fled from Jake when things became serious, so what would stop her from escaping me? My phone, already out the door, buzzed with her texts, but I was unable to read them. For 3 weeks, I allowed myself to think that. I pondered whether I was the most recent destination on Lucy Griffin's tour of hearts, because what we had was unique and special. The worst thing was how right it had felt, how well she fit me, and how easily we'd fallen into the sink. Perhaps that ought to have been a warning sign, rather than consolation. Some people were simply skilled at convincing you that, forever, until they vanished. I didn't return to Lucy's that evening or the following day. Instead, I threw myself into my work, volunteering for emergency services and taking on extra shifts at the clinic. Calls, anything to keep my mind off Jake's arrogant expression and the questions that were constantly on my mind. Monday, as I was checking on a German Shepherd who might have an ear infection this morning, my sister Nicole called and asked, "Have you seen the news? Good morning to you as well, Nick," she said without introducing herself. "I mean it. Switch on channel 12. I put it on speaker and instead opened the news app on my phone. And the headline made me sick. A local tech worker at the subject of a best-selling memoir dispute. What the devil? Continue reading, Nicole said. Grimly, Jake Morris and his new book, Code of Love. The article claimed that the memoir, Programmer's Guide to Heartbreak, had become an unexpected bestseller after the book described his relationship with an unidentified female programmer who had gone viral on social media. The worst part was that someone had allegedly emotionally manipulated him before vanishing to Arizona, revealed that Lucy was the woman in the book, and her name was now trending on Twitter, where harsh remarks were being made. Someone had even shared her photo and place of employment, accusing her of being a cold-blooded manipulator and a digital age gold digger. Address. Jesus, I muttered. It gets worse, Nicole added. I checked the book reviews. This Jake guy portrays her as a cunning predator rather than just someone who is manipulative. who goes after successful men and ruins them for sport. I browsed my phone's reviews. Jake's romantic tragedy featured Lucy as the antagonist, a woman who used her intelligence and beauty to trap. The book was being hailed as a warning against the dating app before shattering the dreams of innocent men. Generation. I'm here. Mila, are you still there? I had mentioned Lucy to Nicole in passing, but I hadn't received a response. This is about Lucy, isn't it? The woman you've been seeing, into specifics. I now regret saying anything at all. Perhaps, honey, I hate to say it, but if even half of what this book says is true, then it's not. The words came out more. This is just retaliation. Nicole, you don't know her. Jake is her ex-boyfriend. How? The million-dollar question was, can you be sure? How could I know? I'd known Lucy for less than a month. Although Jake and her had been together for 2 years, I had a gut feeling that the woman who had saved Phoenix, who had sheltered me at South Mountain under the stars, wasn't the cunning manipulator Jake had portrayed. I told Nicole to leave, saying, Mila, watch out. Although you enjoy saving injured animals, some people aren't able to be saved. Lucy had texted me a dozen times over the phone, so I hung up and sat in the clinic break room looking at my phone. I opened the message thread, but I hadn't read any of them in the previous 2 days. I understand that you're upset, but allow me to clarify. Jake is lying about everything. I have proof. The book is all over the place. People are phoning my office, and I had to take time off to avoid the reporters. You are missed by Phoenix, who is constantly searching for you. I also miss you. I understand if you can no longer trust me, but I need you to know that the last message was sent an hour ago, that everything we talked about was genuine. You are the first person who has ever allowed me to be who I am. I spent a considerable amount of time staring at that final text before grabbing my keys and heading to Lucy's apartment. With her hair pulled back in an untidy bun and dressed in sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, she appeared to. Phoenix came running to me, purring and rubbing against my legs after not sleeping for days. Hello, she said, softly. Hey, I didn't know you were returning. I wasn't either. She took a step to make room for me on the coffee table, surrounded by crumpled tissues and empty coffee cups. Her laptop was open. In some ways, the apartment seemed smaller, as if the walls were closing in. I've been attempting to combat this. She pointed to the laptop screen as she spoke. According to my attorney, I could file a defamation lawsuit, but that would only bring greater focus on the narrative. Is any of it accurate? I inquired. A few of the fundamental facts. We spent 2 years dating. He suggested. At first, I said yes, but I later had second thoughts. However, the way he has presented everything, the reasons he's given to me, she gave a head shake. He seems to be speaking of an entirely different individual. Why didn't you inform me regarding the engagement, since it was degrading? On Christmas Day, Jake proposed in front of his whole family. His mother had already begun organizing the wedding. Everyone was observing and anticipating my response. I replied, yes, even. She pulled Phoenix into her lap as she sat down on the couch. Despite my instincts telling me to run, you desire to be aware of the reality. I understood that I was settling for Jake because I believed he was the safest, best option available, prosperous and well-liked by others. It took me 2 years to acknowledge my misery, and I'm being portrayed as a villain now because I had the gall to desire something real rather than something fake. Practical. I examined her face for any indications of dishonesty, but all I saw was tiredness and real pain. Jake had described a cold manipulator, but this was not him. This lady had been. He was now paying the price for putting honesty ahead of convenience after becoming stuck in an impossible situation. Finally, I said, I believe you. There was no mistaking the relief that filled her features. Really? However, Lucy, we must discuss the implications of this for us. What this means to us. Lucy hardly raised her voice above a whisper. Are you, Mila, having second thoughts? I took a seat on the couch beside her, near enough to sense her stress. I'm afraid. I acknowledged the tension in the media, the book, and the entire Jake situation. This is unlike anything I've ever dealt with. You believe, have I? On social media, my face is everywhere. My work address was posted. I can't even go grocery shopping without being recognized by strangers. Phoenix purred as he stretched between us, the sole noise in the oppressive quiet. Outside, distant thunder rumbled. Another monsoon was approaching, and there was a heavy electric feeling in the air. I said, Jake came to the clinic today. Lucy's head jerked upward. What? He wanted to alert me to you, advised me to read his book before I delved too far. I extended my arm to grasp her hand. He won't stop. Lucy, it's not just no longer about the book. He is actively working to ruin your life. I am aware. The voice broke. This morning, my boss gave me a call. I'm going to be placed on administrative leave until the media attention wanes. It seems that having a contentious employee harms the company's reputation. Bullshit. That's company. She withdrew her hand and got up suddenly, pacing toward the window. Jake might be correct. Perhaps I do destroy everything I come into contact with. You dare not. I also got up and crossed to where she stood, observing the gathering storm clouds. Keep him out of your thoughts like that. So why does it feel that way? Does everything that matters to me turn to ash? My reputation, my job. You're not now. Losing myself. She looked at me, and I saw that she was crying. Don't I? Mila, you were absent for 2 days. Second, things became more complicated. You took off running. The charge struck more forcefully than I anticipated since it was partially accurate. When Jake arrived and things started to get messy and challenging, my natural reaction had been to pull back, just as I had done when my previous relationship became serious and when I moved. First to Phoenix, I said, "You're right. Yes, I ran. However, I am present. Right now, how long? Until the next emergency, until Jake releases another book or the media discovers a fresh topic of obsession." Overhead, thunder roared, and the window was splattered with the first fat drops of rain. Like they did in the desert, the storm was moving quickly. I don't know, I said. To be honest, I've never been in a relationship like this before. Never in my life have I felt this way about a man or female. Lucy, you really frighten me. Why? Because you give me desires I never would have imagined having. You give me hope that we could start a life together. Instead of merely existing, truly create something. Daily, as lightning split the sky, the words hung between us. Lucy took a step. Her blue eyes searched my face as she drew nearer. And you're afraid of that? Totally. She cupped my cheek and reached up. Excellent, because you wouldn't be taking this seriously if you weren't afraid. After flickering, the power abruptly cut off. Only lightning was able to break the darkness that enveloped us. Flashes, from somewhere in the living room. Phoenix gave an unsure meow. Ideal, Lucy muttered as she fumbled for the flashlight on her phone. Where are your candles? The kitchen drawer adjacent to the stove. I found a lighter and a few votive candles after navigating by phone light. We soon had gentle light, flickering throughout the apartment, creating shadows that dance on the walls. Outside, the storm was raging, but something about everything felt more personal with the glow of the candles. Lucy whispered, "This makes me think of South Mountain. Better, company this time." For the first time in days, she grinned. Phoenix could, I disagree. He's very endearing. Phoenix immediately claimed the space between us as we sat back on the couch. The apartment was already warming up without air conditioning, and the storm didn't seem to be abating. I said carefully, "Lucy, we must discuss our next course of action with Jake. With all of this in the book. I am aware. I've also been considering it. My attorney believes that the attention will eventually fade. Social media is dynamic. There will be a fresh scandal to fix your attention on, soon enough, and I suppose I have to start over if it doesn't." I could hear the fatigue underneath the attempt to sound casual. "You don't have to work alone." She gave me a look in the candlelight, her face displaying a conflict between skepticism and hope. "What do you say?" "I'm saying we have to deal with this. Collectively, we respond as a team to whatever Jake throws at us and whatever the media chooses to do, even if it does. Worse, even if they begin pursuing you as well." I considered that. My profession, my standing, and the peaceful existence. If I publicly tied myself to Lucy, everything I had worked so hard to build in Phoenix might be in jeopardy. However, observing her remembering how well she would fit in my arms beneath the stars and the flickering candlelight, I knew it was a simpler decision, more than I had anticipated. Even so, she leaned forward and gave me a tentative, gentle kiss. After that, with expanding, I sensed the tremor in her hands as she drew me in, and I could taste the salt from her tears. "I love you," she said, whispered close to my mouth. 3 weeks ago, the words would have made me shudder, but now that the storm is here, it felt like the most natural thing in the world, with the fire outside and the candlelight illuminating her skin in gold. You too. Throughout the night, there was no power. During those gloomy hours, Lucy and I spoke more than ever before. Phoenix purred between us as we shared secrets by candlelight. She described to me her upbringing in Boston, feeling distinct from other girls, but I'm not sure why. I acknowledged my own perplexity regarding relationships, how I never felt like I was living my life honestly, but rather like I was playing a part. As we lay there, I questioned, "When did you know?" sharing a blanket on her couch, regarding one's attraction to women, most likely high school. However, I buried it so deeply that I told myself that I was merely ogling other girls. Everything didn't make sense until I met you. Being honest caused a feeling of warmth to blossom in my chest. The same is true here. I kept believing that I was flawed because it felt so forced to have a relationship with a man. And I feel as though I've been sleepwalking my entire life. And you woke me up. Reality set in on Sunday morning when the power came back on. Lucy's notifications, more articles, more social media posts, and more strangers instantly made my phone buzz. Analyzing her life, she wasn't alone, though this time we collaborated to care for the animals that were brought to the clinic during the storm. A litter of kittens discovered beneath a carport collapse, a dog so frightened by the thunder that he hurt himself attempting to get away from his kennel. Lucy's presence and the ease with which she interacted with the terrified animals validated what my heart knew already. I remarked, "You're good at this," as I observed her using soft touches and soothing words to soothe a scared tabby. Words. My teacher was good. Doctor. Chen came out with a clipboard from the back room. "We must discuss the media situation. Mila, yesterday, reporters came by to inquire about your connection to Lucy Griffin. I felt sick to my stomach. What did you say to them?" "Nothing. The patient, anyone connected to our clients, is also subject to confidentiality, but they will return." Lucy appeared stunned. "I should proceed. I don't want to interfere with your work." "No." The words sounded more forceful, more than I had planned. "I'm not running, and neither are you." Lucy, Dr. Chen, and myself are gathered together. We will confront the media head-on if they wish to make that their business. Dr. Chen brought up an brow, but gave a nod. "You have a choice. Just be ready for the spotlight." We sat in Lucy's living room that night. Phoenix was lying between us on the floor, making plans in order to counter Jake's story. We had to manage our own narrative. Lucy suggested that we conduct an interview, tell our side, before someone else determines the truth. "Are you certain?" "There's no turning back once we make ourselves known." "Back!" She made a move for my hand. "Mila, Jake gains control over us when we conceal who we are. Us. I'm sick of letting other people tell my story." The weakness in I wanted to shield her from the outside world after hearing her voice. However, I was discovering that Lucy didn't require defense. She required collaboration. After that, we worked together. As we prepared our remarks, our presentation, and something changed in our relationship to the outside world. The previous night's desperation turned into resolve. We had evolved from two individuals attempting to survive a crisis. We were constructing something. Collectively, Lucy took my hand and escorted me to her bedroom after we had discussed our media strategy. The room felt altered now, infused with fresh closeness. Warm light filled the room as she lit the candles once more. "Are you certain about this?" she inquired, running her fingers along the hem of my shirt. "Everything changes when you go public." "I'm sure about you," I said, drawing her in. "We'll figure out everything else out." This time, she kissed me with such intense tenderness that I was astounded. Together, we relocated, slowly, relishing every caress and hushed compliment. Under my fingers, her skin felt smooth, and when she arched, I felt stronger and more exposed than ever as they gasped my name against me. We investigated one another with gaining self-assurance and understanding what caused the other person to react. When she used her tongue to draw patterns on my skin, I was afraid I might melt away. Like dancers who have discovered their ideal mate, we moved together, building to a crescendo that made us gasp for air and shudder. We then lay intertwined, our skin cooling in the air from the desert. Phoenix had taken up his customary position at the foot of the bed, and Lucy made languid circles on my shoulder. "No, whatever happens with Jake, the interview, or anything else," Lucy muttered, "I want you to be aware that I've never been happier, despite everything, especially the chaos. It indicates that this is true, and that you are still choosing me in spite of everything." I tasted the salt as I kissed the top of her head. From her tears earlier, "I'm picking us." New difficulties arose on Monday morning. Lucy's attorney wanted to prepare us for the questions that would be asked during the Wednesday interview. But for the first time since this whole mess, I felt at ease as we sat in her office going over possible talking points. We had the truth on our side. We had each other, and we had a plan. As we were about to depart, the attorney said, "Are you both ready for the backlash? Going public with your strong reactions will result from a relationship." Lucy and I looked at each other. We talked about this, but it really hit home when it was said so directly. "Finally," I said, "we're not living our lives for other people's approval anymore." The newsroom felt. Lucy sat next to me on the interview couch, her hand steady in mine, and it was colder than the Arizona desert should have been, even though the cameras were aimed like weapons at us. The host of Channel 12's morning show, Janet Martinez, grinned without her eyes, but with a professional warmth. "We're here with Dr. for Me Award and Lucy Griffin to talk about the recent controversy surrounding Jake Morris's best-selling memoir. Let's begin with you, Lucy. How do you feel about the way you were portrayed in Code of Love?" Lucy's voice was steady. "Jake wrote a fictional work he titled Memoir, and the woman he portrays isn't me. Rather, it's a character created to make him appear like a victim rather than accept accountability for the breakdown of our relationship. but you did accept his proposal, then depart Phoenix without providing an explanation. I departed Boston following months of attempting to resolve an issue that was Jake was manipulative and domineering, and when he proposed in front of his family, I felt deeply damaged. Janet's eyebrows went up. That's quite an accusation. It's the truth, trapped into saying yes. I have texts and emails that demonstrate Jake's pattern of psychological manipulation during our time together. I squeezed Lucy's hand, pleased with her poise in the face of scrutiny. We had rehearsed these responses, but practicing in her living room wasn't the same as facing actual cameras. Dr. Ward, you've met Lucy? For just a few weeks, how can you be sure she's telling the truth? I said, I know who Lucy really is. Developed an app to assist other pet owners in obtaining veterinary care after saving a stray cat and nursing him back to health. That's not how someone who manipulates others for their own benefit acts. But could it be that you're witnessing what Mr. Morris claims that Lucy has a habit of making people fall in love with her before vanishing? Do you want to see? Lucy leaned forward. Jay finds it hard to believe that I went with authenticity instead of his idea of respectability. Relationship was me pretending to be someone I wasn't in order to please him. And who are you really? This was the time. Lucy glanced at me, and we prepared for the line we chose to cross together. I gave a small nod. As a woman, I've tried for years to push myself into relationships with men because that's what I believed was required of me. I realized I had been living a lie after meeting Mila. The interviewers, are you saying you're gay? I'm saying I'm in. The professional mask slipped a little. The camera panned to me, and I felt my heart. I'm in love with Mila. And for the first time in my life, everything feels right, pounding on my ribs. This relationship is the most genuine thing I've ever experienced. It's not a phase or a rebellion. Knowledgeable. Your veterinary clinic, Dr. Ward, provides conservative Phoenix families. Don't you worry about the consequences for your career. My personal life has no bearing on my capacity to treat animals. If that is a problem for you, you can find another veterinarian. The interview went on to discuss Jake's book, The Media Frenzy, and our future plans for 10 more minutes was finished. Lucy and I sat outside the studio in my car, both of us exhausted. Do you think we did okay? I believe, she inquired. We were honest. We have no control over that. The interview clips were already buzzing on my phone. We're going viral on social media more quickly than we had expected, and some comments were encouraging, complimenting our bravery. Others were predictably ruthless. Look, Lucy said, gesturing to her phone. And Jake replied on social media. His statement, which portrayed himself as the victim of another Lucy, was exactly what I had anticipated: hurt and patronizing. Griffin's manipulation, but the tone seemed desperate, leading me to believe that we had fallen under his skin. I was summoned to Dr. Chen's office that afternoon after a number of clients had called to voice their concerns about my lifestyle choice. But just as many had called to offer their support. The interview was courageous, he said, but I must ask, are you ready for this to impact the practice? Are you firing? Me? Definitely not. I have never worked with a better veterinarian than you. I just want to confirm that you comprehend what you're facing. I felt lighter than I had in days as I made my way back to the exam rooms. The worst was behind us. Public spoke the truth and withstood the immediate consequences. Lucy and I were preparing dinner that night when the doorbell rang. I could see Jake standing on her doorstep through the peephole, appearing noticeably less put together than, "Don't answer it," I said as usual, but Lucy was already unlocking the door with a determined expression on her face. This ends. Jake shoved past her tonight before she could stop him, and all of a sudden we were facing each other in her tiny living space. Phoenix, obviously feeling the tension, hissed from his spot on the couch. Jake sneered. Cute interview, really playing up the victim angle. You need to leave, Lucy said. Firmly. Do I? Lucy, this is fascinating. After 2 years with me, you never stated having a thing for women. But after 3 weeks with her, you're a lesbian all of a sudden. How practical. My sexuality is neither convenient nor inconvenient. It simply is. Correct. And presumably, the attention you're receiving from portraying the victim of injustice has nothing to do with the book's success. You wrote a hit piece because you, Dr. Ward, isn't it? Tell me, what happens when someone can't handle being dumped? Jake smiled icily at me. When playing house gets old, Lucy decides to reinvent herself because she's bored with you, too. Sufficient, Lucy said in a voice with a depth I had never heard before. Jake, you must comprehend something. What was never real. I was acting like your perfect girlfriend because I felt compelled to. But this, she pointed out, between us, this is genuine. And no amount of coercion or humiliation in public is going to alter that. You believe this will continue. You believe she won't grow weary of your drama. Lucy gave me a look at that point, and a verbal exchange developed over the course of weeks of increasing intimacy took place between us. She came forward until she was just a few inches away from Jake's face. Leave my apartment. Don't return. Don't give me a call. Avoid writing about me. Jake, we're done. It's been more than a year since we finished. You are the only one who doesn't seem to get that. Jake looked unsure for the first time since I'd met him, and he looked between us, maybe for the first time. This isn't over, he said, acknowledging what everyone else could see. Lucy and I were strong, unified, and unflappable. But the threat lacked conviction. Yes, it is, Lucy said coolly. And the kiss was fierce, possessive, and utterly devastating in its certainty, and it was given to me right in front of him. Jake was already on his way to the door when we parted ways, and Lucy and I stood in the adrenaline gradually dwindling in the center of her living room. Feel better? I inquired. Much, she said with a smile, drawing me in close once more. Ready for whatever comes next. With you? Bring it on. 6 months later, Phoenix was standing on my chest, purring like a tiny engine. When I woke up, our new apartment's bedroom window let in sunlight. Lucy's place had felt too small after everything that took place. We had discovered a 2-bedroom apartment close to South Mountain that was ideal for the 3 of us. I whispered into Lucy's shoulder. Your cat is demanding breakfast. Our cat. He picked up that behavior from you. 2, she corrected without opening her eyes. Enough. Phoenix was now open about his morning ritual, and I was totally enamored with his furry paw. As Lucy's attorney had anticipated, the media attention had largely subsided. Jake's book sales had peaked and then declined, replaced by more recent scandals and outrage. He had returned to Boston and, based on mutual acquaintances, I felt sorry for her because she was dating someone new. Lucy padded to the kitchen and won. Hopefully, she had regained her job. Phoenix, weaving between her legs, wearing one of my old veterinary school t-shirts. Her animal welfare app had gained popularity after the business recognized that the controversy was actually good publicity. Big day today, she said, putting down Phoenix's food, referring to the thousands of users at the height of the media circus. This evening was the app launch party. What began as a side project grew into something greater than either of us could have envisioned. I was hired by Lucy to serve as the veterinary consultant, and we worked on the interface for months, establishing a network of Arizona's participating veterinarians. Apprehensive, I inquired, putting my arms around her from behind. Are you scared? I am, too, but it was the good. The app wouldn't make us wealthy, but it would make us feel a certain kind of fear, the kind that comes from creating something worthwhile together, would connect pet owners with nearby veterinarians, and provide them with trustworthy information. We'd already received messages from users expressing gratitude for our assistance with their pet emergencies. The launch party took place at a hip, Phoenix location, which included a dozen veterinary specialists who had collaborated with us and local media coverage. Lucy confidently answered questions from reporters while looking stunning in a blue dress that accentuated her eyes. Had been attempting to discredit her months prior. Journalist Dr. Ward came up to me by the bar. How does it feel to see? The word girlfriend still made me a little excited. Your girlfriend's vision came to life. I clarified, gently, and it feels amazing. Lucy has made something that will benefit thousands of animals and their families. Nicole, dressed elegantly in black and obviously proud, appeared next to me. Her support was crucial because she had flown in from San Diego for the celebration. Nicole said, she's good for you, said softly, observing Lucy show a group of investors the features of the app. Yes, she is. Take a look. For the first time in years, I was truly happy. In spite of the confusion, despite the media attention and the total disruption of my life, I was happier than I could have ever dreamed. Feasible. Lucy and I ended up on the venue's outdoor patio as the evening wore on. Phoenix securely with a pet sitter at home. Below us, the Phoenix skyline glistened, and the air was finally cooling after yet another sweltering day. Lucy leaned against the railing and said, do you remember our first night up at South Mountain? How could I have forgotten? That night, I knew I was falling for you. I was terrified of myself. I was afraid of everything about you. Occasionally still does. She looked over at. I noticed something in her face that caused my heart to race. The last 6 months have been the best of my life. Mila. Life. I feel like I'm living again. And not just because of the app or because I've proven Jake wrong. As I am, I've got something for you. Lucy. She dug into her handbag and took out a tiny velvet box. I gasped. Is that it's not what you believe? Yes, it is, but she chuckled uneasily. I wanted to inquire even though we stated that we would never do the conventional thing. Appropriately. Just us. No family to watch. No pressure. When she opened the box, she saw a plain silver band with a tiny diamond that glinted in the city lights. Will you marry me? Mila Ward. Will you join me in creating this crazy, lovely life? Formally, I gazed first at Lucy's face, and then at the ring. 6 months prior, I had been fearful of commitment, afraid of anything that seemed too permanent or real. However, standing here with the woman who, in the best way possible, completely upended my world, the solution was clear. Indeed, without a doubt, indeed, she, with trembling hands, they put the ring on my finger. Then, beneath the phoenix stars, we were sharing a kiss. The phoenix, presumably wondering where his human companions had gone. When we split up, I stated one condition. Anything, the phoenix, gets to appear in the wedding pictures. Lucy's laughter was clear and unrestrained. Deal. However, I'm not bowing to him. Tie. Well, bargain. On our way to our apartment, our cat, I reflected on the peculiar journey that had led us to this point in our shared life. A stray cat with injuries, a fortuitous encounter, a media outlet, crisis that had the potential to ruin everything. However, it had shaped us into something rather than shattering us, more powerful. Lucy. Hello. Yes, I adore our complex existence. She gave my hand a squeeze. I do, too. Everything. When we arrived home, Phoenix was standing by the door. Seemingly, realized a significant event had occurred. Lucy displayed the engagement ring on her left hand. What are your thoughts? Phoenix, are you prepared to organize a wedding? He rubbed against both of us and meowed once. Legs, obviously in agreement. Phoenix was between us as we sat down on the couch. Exactly like that first, I came to the realization that this was the definition of happiness at night. Not flawless, not straightforward, but genuine, selected, and definitely worth the fight.